Hey, folks, you have found the most fun panel that you're going to join this year. My name is Lauren Bailey. My friends call me LB. I'm the founder of Girls Club and Factor 8. And this is going to be an awesome discussion. We're starting right now on how to create a coaching culture. I know it's awesome because not only do we have really great content, I've got the best panelists in the world. Let's let you all introduce each other, or maybe yourselves, not each other, sorry. Introduce yourselves and feel free to include your superhero or super sexy name. Cassie, you're up first.
Hey everyone, I'm Cassie. I am over here at Outreach. I lead our West commercial team focused on landing new business. Love this topic we're going to be talking about today. Gosh, I'm trying to think who my favorite superhero is. It's kind of silly, but maybe it's not even a superhero, but I love Grey's Anatomy. Ooh. And so really any doctor on that show, but specifically Dr. Weber is my energy animal. I love him very much.
Dr. Weber, that's fantastic.
Yeah, very nice. I am a Grey's Anatomy fan as well, right? Michelle Baker. I am a co-founder in a business growth organization, Shiftco. I also am a sales speaker and coach. I'm really happy to be here. Love me some LB, and she has invited some amazing folks that I got to connect with beforehand. So you guys are in for a treat. And my nickname growing up was Missy, so I would be Missy Magnificent.
Oh yeah, that's good, Missy. I like that. Michelle is a Girls Club thought leader and works with us in each one of our cohorts, and she's fabulous. All right. What'd you say in your post yesterday, Steve? The token dude. We're super happy to have you here. Steve Richard.
Nice seeing all of you. This is fun. Steve Richard, founder of Exec Vision, just got bought by MediaFly, a company called MediaFly a couple days ago. We're pulling together the whole sales tech stack. It's a lot of fun. And the fun fact about me, I couldn't get anybody to go with me to prom. There you go.
Oh,
I gotta say that at Girls Club
now. Did you grow into your handsome post high school? Is that what happened? You?
I was the absolute loser in high school, like the worst of the worst. So.
Steve, were you wearing the headband in high school that you wear in your daily tips on LinkedIn?
I didn't, so who knows? Maybe that's actually helped the cause. I don't know. Somehow my wife married me. I don't really know why. So
right. The fact
you can rest assured that you didn't miss much at prom.
Probably true.
I think this is also very, very true. If we don't know each other yet, my name is Lauren Bailey. I love call coaching. I've been teaching it for 20 years. I'm the founder of Girls Club and Factor 8, and I put my own damn face on the panel because I got a lot to say. Here we go. We're going to talk about why it's important. There's 4 S's of great coaching organizations I'm going to share with you. We're going to talk about each one of the S's, and we're just going to be chock full of tips the entire way. While I have your attention and slides, I'm going to brag about Girls Club for a second if you've never heard of it before. Check this out. It's our 4th year, our 4th cohort. Girls Club is all about getting more women into sales leadership and on panels like this. And check out Generation 4, some of our logos, 115 companies, look at the 7 countries in the world, 23 states, and look at our feedback. It's just in from cohort 3. I love me some 90s, right? But the 100% of our graduates felt more prepared to take the next step in their career. And that's what we're all about. All right, here we go. Why on coaching? We're going to warm up our chats again. Normal coaching programs are X% to quota. Great coaching programs are X% to quota. So what's everybody's normal percent to quota if you're just sort of doing the best you can with coaching? Panelists, do you want to make a guess? Everybody on chat, type it in. It is X%.
Let the chat go. What do they think?
Yeah, let the chat go.
You're just being scared.
Sophie,
right?
80, Heidi, 75. It's more fun to read their names. Diana, 60%.
Oh, Lori Boyle,
55%. I think she's closer.
Yep.
The first one.
And Lori Layton with 25%. Yikes.
Jackie with average 70, great 100.
We're up to great. If you do it really well, 97. You know that 97.6% of all stats are made up, right? But I'm loving this. Great at 95. Anybody else? Panelists, you want to weigh in?
I think I saw it during the thing. So
yeah, it was. I think it was somewhere around what, 78, 75 to
It's a
78.
memory test at this stage, isn't it? That is incorrect.
I didn't take my Jinkoba today, so 75.
85%. So that's a 30-point lift, right? It's 30-point lift. All right, we're going to start with a question. They say that coaching cultures depend on leadership, right? I think this is true because the culture of any organization is shaped by the worst behavior a leader is willing to tolerate, right? Coaching is often prioritized last, it's canceled first. I think that's a lot to do with the coaching culture. But I'm going to toss it over. Cassie, I'm going to put you first because outreach has had it's one of the best cultures out there, right? I certainly hope anybody who's looking, go check out outreach. As a leader in the sales organization, right? What do you do to make it a great coaching culture?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I've been in a lot of other sales orgs that certainly don't have a similar culture. And when you said it's the first thing that gets canceled, I think every single person has had, as an AE, been on, your manager, there's the one-on-one where you're like, gosh, like, this is great. I'm looking forward to it. And then it's the first thing that goes, right? A deal pops up, all of a sudden it's off the calendar. So we do a couple of different things. First, we separate our one-on-ones. So all of our frontline managers have 2 one-on-ones a week, one that's specifically tied to the metrics and pipeline, and another that's exclusively coaching.
Good.
And those are 2 meetings, and it goes all the way up to our CRO that do not get canceled.
Boom. I love that. And there it is. It takes the cue all the way from your CRO, because if Anna were canceling those left and right, you'd be like, no bigs.
Exactly. And what we do to ensure the quality of those is we actually have what we call film review, which you think about film review in terms of sales calls, like, oh, this is a time where we listen to reps calls. We actually have leadership reviews. So monthly, I sit down with my frontline leaders and we listen to their coaching calls. And then quarterly, our SVP picks out the best of the coaching calls and we listen to it as a leadership group.
Okay, hang on 1 second. I got to clarify.
Yes.
As a leadership team, you listen to the other leaders coach and you coach the coach.
That's exactly right.
That's like a mic drop. If you need to leave for other meetings, we're not going to say anything that good the rest of the
So I gotta jump on that one because I'll give you a term for it, and we kind of borrow it from call center as calibration. Management teams don't calibrate very often or very well. The best coaching cultures start with a calibration, and because if the managers can't agree on what does good look like, and then they can't agree to listen to something and compare it to what good looks like. And I'll give you one little build, Cassie, on what you're doing, which, by the way, I didn't even know that on outreach. That's awesome. One of our customers, On Deck Capital, they used to do this thing they called the Coaching Olympics. This guy, Chad Dyer, came up with it, where the management team would be there. He would do it, I think, twice a year or once a quarter. I think it was twice a year. And they even had a panel of like sales leaders that were judging the sales managers coaching. And the sales manager that won that, at the time, they had like 20 of them. The sales manager that won that Coaching Olympics with the calibration would get an all expenses paid trip anywhere they wanted to go domestically.
Wow.
So people would go like, they were in New York, so they were going to like Napa. But if you think about it, that's only twice a year.
Right.
It's only, and so that's not very expensive. A trip to Napa is maybe $1,000 round trip or something, right? So it's like, it's a trip twice a year or two times a year, but the calibration and the buy-in from the managers, because they want to win that trip.
I love that.
What I took away and what I heard from this is what is created is an environment of vulnerability. So when people are open and everybody's listening and everybody's hearing and you're getting feedback, it dissipates the fear of being found out. It normalizes that it's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to learn. Unlearn and to relearn. And that's what the power of what you just described, both of you all just described, in what is created with the Olympics and with the partnerships. And that's what we don't have enough of. So many people are scared to fail in sales because sales is such an outcome driven role as a leader, especially you have all these people you're accountable for, but when you're given an environment where it's okay to learn, that is so empowering.
Love, 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 love. So good. What a great discussion. And it is that what we're talking about is not just how to get better at coaching or making sure everybody knows what to coach. We're talking about all of it. When you talk about a culture, right, Michelle, you nailed it. It's that environment. Katie in chat says psychological safety, and that's it.
I know, I love that term.
Yeah, super good. All right, so we're going to talk about if you're trying to fix a culture, start a culture, improve it, go from 55 to 85, there are 4 S's, right? You're looking at them here: strategy, structure, systems, and skills. And this is going to shape our discussion, right? This is part of what is making the difference between good and great. All right, I'm going to quit sharing in a second. If you are a leader, enablement or sales, and you're trying to have the right strategy around coaching, look at these 8 questions. If you don't have answers to each one of them, write it down and go get the answers. Okay, I'll leave this up here for 1 more minute. And this time I want to start with you, Michelle, right? If we look at, where is it? 7 and 8, measuring success and responding to failure. You coach organizations or people in all different organizations.
Yes.
Right? Talk to me about measurement.
Well, measuring a success. So again, sales is driven by a quota, right? You want to make this amount of money, you want to make this revenue. And they're often, not always, but often, the emotional component of what someone is experiencing as they attempt to make that number is not measured. It's not discussed. It's not talked about. I tell people sales is actually a very difficult and challenging job because you're faced with the way you feel emotionally, mentally, spiritually, right? You're dealing with all this rejection. We know that successful salespeople hear no more than anyone else. And they've anesthetized themselves to the no. They've taken the no as an opportunity to learn, whereas people who are struggling, that middle and that lower rung, are somehow struggling and internalizing and taking it as rejection. They are not bouncing back and utilizing it as a way to leverage. So how do you measure that? And that's sometimes where the challenge comes in, of how you develop someone who's right at that cusp of becoming incredible, but can't seem to wrap their mind around what they're feeling. And so that is something that I work with and discuss and always ask people, why do you want to sell? It's a question that most sellers are rarely even asked. Why do you want to sell? Why do you want to be a leader? Why? And Simon Sinek says it well. When you can uncover that and you can lock, stock that and build off of that, everything else starts to become a lot simpler and the metrics become a lot easier to obtain.
You always have a cool point of view on this. I think that's neat. So Cassie, let's talk about the goal. Right? We know that at outreach, one of the questions was, what's it more important than, and what is it not more important than? You've done a nice job of that, right? These meetings don't get canceled.
Yep.
But sometimes it's less important than a really big, massive deal, right? When you talk about that coaching and development, what's the goal at outreach?
Yeah, so our goal and the number one thing that we're focused on right now is AE participation. And so what that looks like for us is, how do we take, especially our rampers, and how do we measure how they're performing over time? Mm-hmm. And so it's funny, I was just telling you, we were just on our all company meeting right now, and we were talking about the typical attainment in a sales org and what does that look like? And for us, a lot of sales orgs are structured in a way where 1 or 2 people hit the number and they buoy the org. Mm-hmm. And so for us, what we measure is, okay, what are the tactics that sit below the ultimate goal, which is how do we get our sales reps successful? And we measure participation as 70% or greater attainment. And that's a metric that we hold all of our leaders to. Hey, are we coaching? Are we ramping these folks to get above that bar?
So do you mean participation is I'm at 70% to quota or above, or is participation, my leaders are participating in the coaching of the people who are at 70%?
So both. So it's the 70%, specifically, that specifically is their attainment. Now, for folks that are ramping, their leaders are involved in most everything, right? And like the expectation is we have what we call big bets, which those are the deals we need to win. And those are deals where we believe like we win and we lose as a team. And so we measure those leaders on, hey, like at the top, what's your participation across the team? And then as we go down, what was your specific role in each of those deals and in each of the coaching opportunities to help make sure that the reps got better deal over deal.
Okay, so I hear you're measuring leaders by showing up to do the right things.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, yeah. The goal of the coaching at this stage, what you're measuring is the doing of it, like
The
just
doing of it.
doing it. It's not whether you do it perfect. It's not, it's just get it done. Just do it.
It's 100%. And it's getting your hands dirty. And when we look and we hire leaders, we look for leaders that love the product and that still love to co-sell. Because at the end of the day, like that's when reps get better, is when they see the behavior modeled really well.
Oh, this is going to be interesting as we talk about skills later. I think one of the things that makes it hard for leaders to be great managers and leaders to be great coaches is that they can't stop selling. So we'll have an interesting debate on that one. But first, I want Steve to talk to this. You've implemented and helped hundreds of organizations, right? Probably in the thousands now, implement coaching programs.
Boy, I hope it's not over 1,000, but let's keep going.
We won't talk about the gray, right? We won't talk about the gray. What works for them, right? As you look at their coaching strategy, what have you seen be successful? What have you seen fail?
Okay, so it goes back to the first thing. It's a heck of a lot easier if you get the leader that's going to be driving the agenda and creating mandates around it and then holding their managers accountable. If you don't, you can have a successful coaching culture. Very, very hard. The managers all have to kind of band together to do it. So it's very, very difficult. I see that happen in 10% of the time, maybe 20, 80, 90% of the time. It's unfortunately still top down driven. Now we got to get buy-in so it goes bottom up as well. So that's going to be really important. I will say that attaching it to a concrete KPI, as much as I hate that, you need to do. So in addition to Cassie, what you're talking about actually measuring that it happens, that is like absolutely the first thing. It's like, did the kid make their bed in the morning and brush their teeth? Did it happen or not? I mean, versus how well did it happen? I don't know. We'll take them to the dentist and they're going to tell us how well, the kindergartner brushed her teeth, right? Oh, she did great. Perfect. Then I guess she's doing well enough. All right. So that's the first point, but we got to attach it back to a KPI. And then the next, the big thing around is the consistency. It's a little bit done consistently will be a lot done all at once. So what I'll see is people will like push their coaching off, push their coaching off, push their coaching off. And then they try to do like a lot of coaching in one big lump. And that doesn't work. So, and frankly, I end up doing that too, right? I'll like on a Saturday morning, before the kids wake up, do like 3 hours of call listening and dropping comments on calls. And it's like, it's not really producing the lasting change if you do a little along the way. Consistency and accountability are those two key words. You got to get those right. And then after that, this is the interesting thing we see in our customer base. So we're able to measure manager coaching today. So we can measure A, did it happen? And B, how much of it did they do? So one would think, because most leaders are like, we're going to have a coaching culture. We have a lot of customers like big mandate, sales leader, we're going to do coaching. We're going to measure it. Great. The managers who have the most coaching counterintuitively, paradoxically, don't necessarily create the greatest business impact in the team. And this is kind of ironic. So just because you're busy being a coach doesn't mean your coaching is actually getting the team better on that KPI that you're measuring and that you care about, like win rate. And, we're going to go into this number of products sold per account, conversion rate, onboarding ramp time, whatever. So what ends up happening is we're actually seeing that the managers that are kind of in the middle of the activity that are working smarter, not harder. So maybe they'll do like a small group coaching session where they knock out 4 B players at the same time for a call coaching session. They can get a lot more coaching done and a lot less calories burned. They get a bigger business impact. But when you measure their coaching, it shows that they're not coaching as much as these other people who get less business impact. So this is as much about like, it's like salespeople, like we don't measure how much time salespeople sell. We kind of do, but not really. Sure. We're measuring if they sell.
Time if they're getting the deals, right? Yeah.
So like if we got a rep that can get double their quota in 20 hours a week, and then they want to go fly fishing, like,
all right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I got one of those.
Be nice.
And you love them. You'd like 10 more. So it goes back to defining again what the goal is. So Steve, what I was hearing you say is like, listen, sometimes it's just do it and get it done. And that helps. Sometimes the better ones have higher quality and more effectiveness, but that's assuming that you're measuring the goal, right? You're measuring success by uplift, whether it's revenue, KPI, whatever it may be, right? For some, the goal of coaching can simply be engagement. It can simply be, I'm going to do what these millennials and Zs are looking for, and I'm going to develop them so that they're going to love their managers and they're going to stay. So these guys that are doing a ton of coaching, they might not be getting the dollars lift, but my question is, what's their attrition look like? And what do you guys think? I mean, is that a good enough goal? Has anybody heard that? Have you ever had a company come to you and be like, listen, I don't really give a damn if it moves the number? Yeah, big yes, Steve?
Big yes. Although here's the ironic thing. I'm going to say something that's, as a general rule of thumb, the older we get, the neuroplasticity is not there as it was before. I'm 41. I already kind of feel like an old dog that's set in my ways for certain things. I just am. And the reality is that, even though I love learning, I learned most of the stuff I'm probably going to learn in my career leading up to from age 20 to 40 versus 40 to 60. I hope that's not the case, but it's probably true. So as a general rule of thumb, if you're doing really good sales coaching with entry-level people or younger people in their career, they're probably going to get career path out of your coaching program into some other group pretty quick. If it's out of SDR into quota carrying sales or into enterprise sales or strategic or whatever.
Right? Isn't that the goal?
Yeah.
I did not know I was older than you. I'm not super happy about that outcome.
I do look a lot older than you. That's true.
That is, well, that's, we'll talk about the grays.
Well, I'll see you at Ted's wedding. Yeah, we can talk.
Right. We'll have, I'm sure we'll drink a lot of whiskey and discuss this. All right. So the next S is structure. I'm sharing, we do a lot of coaching, training, and implementation too on the Factor 8 side. And this is the questions we get in the general order. When somebody is starting a program, and very often, I gotta be honest with you, it's managers up. The most successful ones are leaders down, but the majority of times you don't get that super great leadership and you're trying to kind of bake it from the bottom up. And they come by starting to say things like, well, what do we coach? What are we coaching on? And what does good look like? How should we measure that? And then they start to get to the definitions of, well, how often should we do it? And how do we do it? When do we do it? There's a question right now in chat about that. What are the rep expectations and how do we track it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So as you get to structure, it doesn't mean that this has to be the right order. Just make sure that you can answer all of these. And I guess the number one question I have is anything missing here? Steve, let's start with you this time. As you look at building the structure around your coaching program, right? What's missing from this one?
Who do you coach? Because the reality is, do we put who?
What do you coach? Oh, who do you coach? Oh my God, I thought you said what? Yeah.
Who? Because the reality is that most managers spend way too much time. There's the old corporate executive board research. I used to work there, and they show a bell curve of performers, and they say equal amount of coaching for A, B, and C players. You would think that the curve would shift. We're giving them the same input. We should get the same output. We're dealing with human beings, not machines. The A players get a little better, but they're maxed out. The C players don't get much better because, let's face it, they're C players. They're probably in the wrong job. And then you've got the middle B where you get almost all of the bang for the buck. So the reality is when you do this with managers and then you do the skill will matrix, what they realize pretty quickly is I'm spending way too much of my time. I'm burning a lot of calories, especially on my C players. All of us are trying to save them.
Yeah.
And it's a waste of your time and effort. Stop doing it.
Yeah. Oh, I love this. I love it. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Who? It's super, super important. Cassie, let's go to you next, right? As you're looking at the structure at Outreach, you've got a great culture. If you were to rate the structure on a scale of 1 to 10, like 10 being every single one of these things is uber defined, and 1 being we don't have any of it, we just do it. Where are you at and how does it affect you?
Yeah, I think that we have a really well-defined structure with, I would give our SDR org a 9. Like we've got that nailed. I would give our emerging and our kind of SMB segment an 8. Like, again, it's really structured, really nailed. The coaching is, and then as we go up segment, I think that we probably are closer to a 6 or a 7, right? We have opportunities there of how we can better define it, what we can look at. I think, Steve, what you just said about the C players and like, how do we take groups of Bs and better leverage our time to have more impact? And then I think where we really have an opportunity, and we've started to lean into it with, I was telling Lauren, our RISE program, our Women in Sales Leadership, we have ERGs, but how we better enable and coach our frontline sales leaders. Because investing in those folks and making sure that they have the upskill in order to then turn around and give that to their reps, I'd probably give us a 4 or 5 on that.
I find that in almost every organization. That's why the last S is skill. So we'll dive into that some more there. Michelle, you've seen lots of organizations, right? As the coach, from the coach perspective, what's most important in the structure?
What's most important, I would say the intent, right? So people bring me in from the outside, and it goes to what you've heard Steve speak to a lot. It's like, what are the outcomes? What are the KPIs you want to hit? Why are you doing this? Is this something you're doing just to hit a number? Or is it something you're looking at integrating and incorporating the way you do business, the way you serve your people, and create an environment where you're acquiring and retaining top talent? Because if it's just about hitting the number, and it's not gonna make a lasting and long-term impact. And right now in business, that is the only way you're gonna survive, is looking at creating culture and environments where people can thrive, not just survive.
This is it, man.
And actually, I gotta make sure that the word culture is not lost on anyone, because there's a huge difference between a coaching program, which frequently can be the catalyst for a coaching culture, versus once the coaching culture is started, as long as it's positive, productive, people are buying into it, leadership doesn't undermine it, it just kind of goes on its own. It's lovely. It's a magical thing.
It's a growth mindset in an organization. It's an org that learns. It's an org that's not afraid of failure. It's an org that will learn out loud, as we call it in Girls Club, right? That authenticity, that vulnerability.
And sales managers, the best thing I see people do to kickstart it, if people are uncomfortable or like big brother, all this stuff, get on the phone, do a call, listen to that recorded call with your people, break it down, let them give you feedback.
Brilliant.
Then you set the tone that like, oh, okay, like I'm not going to lose my job for this. We have like a call scorecard within our product. A lot of you score calls with some kind of a framework or rubric. And a lot of times the reps, when they are asked to score their own call, which is a key insight, is get the reps involved in their own development, get them to score their own. A lot of times in the beginning, they give themselves all top score, 5 out of 5, 5 out of 5 for all 10 questions. And you ask them why, and they're like, well, because this goes for my compensation, right? You're like, no, this is all about getting better. It's not tied to your comp plan.
That's so funny. See, I think that must have been dudes, because if you give a woman an opportunity, I mean, since this is sponsored by Girls Club, let's be honest. If you got a team of female sales reps and you say score yourself, I guarantee you will not have one woman that will give herself straight 5s.
They will always grade themselves tougher.
Yes.
The women in particular, but a lot of the men do too, to be fair, but the women in particular, you're dead on about that, will always be their own toughest critic.
Yeah, always. And I think it's something to keep in mind. All right. So I got to tell you, the thing that bothers me is you guys, I showed you a timeline on structure, right? And as we were looking at this in our prep call, Steve said, Lauren, you got to loop it back, right? And it's often missing. So if you're a sales manager and you find that you're coaching the same damn thing over and over and over and over, and you're not feeding that back to your training department, your onboarding team, whoever it is, that's on you. As a sales leader, once a month, be asking your managers, what top 3 skills are you having to coach right now? Where are your teams struggling? Where are they improving? Just asking about team development and the progression of skills, massive in creating a coaching culture. All right, so we're not going to share again right now, but I want to move on to systems, right? Cassie, Steve, I know you guys love conversational intelligence, right? Exec vision and outreach voice literally are 2 tools, leading tools in the marketplace. What advice do you have for folks around systems? Cassie, you first this time.
Yeah, a couple of things. So first, we use our SDR org uses outreach voice. They listen to calls, they share calls. I think getting yourself Slack channels or however you share things where you can almost have a good sense of humor around it. I think sometimes we lack humor in sales.
Yes.
So bring like our SVP of sales, Mark, we have a Slack channel called Sales Calls, and he'll throw in terrible calls. He'll be like, listen to this call. It went totally sideways. And that builds a culture of trust within the org to be like, okay, I want to get feedback on my call. If Mark had a bad call, I can have a bad call. And so getting that in place where you're using the recordings and getting them out to the broader group. How I use it within our org is we use what's called Outreach Kaya, which is our jumps into the Zoom meeting and records everything. But I actually have triggers set up where I can see all of our deals that are over a certain size. And I want to see the calls where my managers weren't in the meeting or my managers were in the meeting to watch and understand what the coaching looked like throughout those different deals. There's a lot of ways to use technology to make sure that you're scaling yourself appropriately and you're in the right meetings, but you're also getting caught up on the other meetings and making sure that your leaders are doing the right things when you're not there.
I need you to repeat that because I think I may have missed some brilliance there. You're comparing meetings where your managers were and where your managers weren't and looking for what?
So I'll set up, we have this idea of big bets, which is our biggest deals. And we sell to sales leaders. We get to sell to our own persona. It's
Yeah, that's fun.
awesome. And so our reps are in the deals, I'm in the deals, managers are in the deals. And I have a trigger set up within our conversational intelligence that notifies me of every meeting that we have over a certain dollar threshold where one of my managers wasn't there. So I can understand like, hey, how did we do? And how are we doing at multi-threading the deal with different folks in their org? And it's a good coaching opportunity for me to go back to my managers and say, hey, what were we, doing in this deal and where are we at?
Yeah, I didn't know that you could set a trigger like that. I've heard of trigger words, right? But you got a trigger about who was in attendance.
Yep, that's exactly right.
That's fascinating. Okay, Steve, your top bit of advice around tools. Oh, you're on mute, my friend.
I'll give you two. The first tip is regarding call recording laws, and I'm going to put this in the chat. So, first and foremost, you have to get recorded calls approved by whoever in your organization. I'm not a lawyer. I've worked with over 35 companies. They ultimately, every one of them approve them. Usually I end up actually on the phone with their GCs or privacy officers and people like that. They just don't understand. They don't understand that like an outreach, for example, there's a setting. So if you call an all party consent state like California, it just doesn't record that call based on the area code. Now, of course, we all know that sometimes people are in California, but maybe they have a Atlanta 404 area code. Well, there's those things that happen, or they have a California area code. They're from California, but now they live in New York, whatever. But the risk becomes very, 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 very small. So I'm going to put a blog article in the chat here for everyone. And if you need any help on call recording laws, please leverage me. It's a complicated, nuanced subject that most people don't understand a damn thing about. And by the way, there is a reason they call them legal opinions, because the lawyers have opinions in the interpretation of the state statutes along the way, and every state is very different. So for example, I call them the M&M states, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan. Most people don't realize that all of those states have carve-outs for recording for business. And it's also not where your reps are located. People think it's where the reps are located. No, it's where you're calling into. The state cares about the citizens of their particular state. And here's the biggest mistake that people make on call recording laws, which blows my mind. They never get their own people to sign something acknowledging they're being recorded, which to me is nuts. And actually, if you go to that, because everywhere in the country, the United States of America is a one-party consent country filled with all-party consent states, or there are like 11 of them. So if you go there, there's a blog, literally I have a call recording policy you should put in place. I got the document you have people sign from the Society of Human Resources Managers. I'm talking about like $20,000 in legal bills you can save yourself. Click in there, click that, download those templates and use them. That's step number one. Step number two, we've all probably heard of the forgetting curve. Our brains are wired to purge and dump and forget information overnight. So the biggest mistake that we make in our coaching programs is we don't make them. We have to probably coach the same thing, usually for most people, at least 3 times before they actually, master is a strong word, before they get it right. Sometimes like 6. So in terms of a technological capability, the difference between the exec vision versus the refracts, and we integrate with outreach actually and ingest those recordings, and Kai and other things, is this idea of coaching plans and how but again, you don't need a technology for this, but what you do need to do is track it. So my old Vorsight business that I sold, we had 453 SDRs over 16 years. And our management team was religious. Every Wednesday they'd have this coaching meeting and they would say, who are we working with? What are we working with them on? How many meetings have we been working with them on this? And then have they changed?
Yeah.
And once it becomes mastery, then it's repetitive, it's habitual. You don't have to worry about it again.
It's so true though. And I love the tools that, by the way, a lot of dashboard tools, if they're really good, can integrate your call scoring. And so that way on your management dashboard, I'm not just looking at metrics and KPIs and results, I'm also looking at skills. And I think that's just super sexy, but I also don't get out that much. I have to share a story that breaks my heart a little bit. We're talking about triggers, right? So one of the things that CI tools like Outreach Voice and Exec Vision and others do is you can program keywords, right? So it'll alert you to calls that are using maybe your competitors' names, et cetera. So this is a sad story. A past client of mine implemented a different CI tool and they used it 100% to fire people. So people who forgot to say blank, which was the policy, those were the keywords that they set up. So again, you've got to let your strategy, right, dictate your culture, dictate your tools. Michelle, I'm going to pass it to you for a second because you've got 3 out of 4 panelists who are massive fans of call recording, right? Anybody who's been a sales manager, the busiest job in the world, cannot sit live waiting for calls to happen to coach, which is why CI is a massive category. You still like live coaching, try and sell us good luck.
At this point, you guys have almost made me go to the other side. The only thing I'll say that I've heard consistently with the differentiating is, again, I go to intent, right? So the goal of coaching is to help someone harness a habit. As I tell people, the only reason anything in life is hard because you haven't habituated. Once it's a habit, you can't not do it. You no longer think about the possibility of failure. All you think about is solving for what you believe you're capable of successfully doing. And I am a fan of whatever you need to use to help your people do that so that they not just do it well, they enjoy it. The company will thrive. It'll be a better environment, culture. It's better for the buyers, the sellers, the managers. And that's the hardest thing to do, is to get adults to habituate something that is challenging, right? And if you're using a tool, I'm not even going to bat an eye at this point, because between you, Cassie, and Steve, I'm almost over into what I call the dark side of animation of coaching. So
I'm going to do devil's advocate for a minute, because I'll tell you what, Michelle, I have sold to a lot of sales leaders, and I call it the call recording value ladder, where they start where they're like, why would you record calls? Isn't that for like customer service? That's weird. Yeah. And then you all get all the way up to where they're using like a CI tool. So the one that I'll tell you what I am stumped on, I haven't been able to figure out how to crack the code on them, is the real-time coaching people that like to literally listen in real time. Outreach has, what's the capability called, Cassie, where you can like literally hear the calls as they're happening?
Yeah, in Kaya, we have real-time coaching now where cards pop up at the reps.
Oh, so I know Kaya pops up, but I'm talking about the managers actually listening.
Oh, the live call studio where you're actually listening to the rep live on a call. Yep.
I know some managers that swear by it. They typically have transactional sales processes where they want to like just get in there, give, like basically tell the rep what to say, and the rep parrots it, but in real time. And look, to me, that seems insane, because if you've been on a sales call and they go, say this, but for other people and their rhythms, sometimes for the rhythms and motions, it does great. And the reps close more deals. So all devil's advocate, sure.
Yeah.
Listen, I think that it really depends again on the goal, right? If your goal is to increase sales, then you want live coaching, because you're not coaching the rep, you're coaching the deal. Let's be clear.
And now Kelly's in here saying there's a difference between being live on the call and influencing it versus providing coaching. Kelly, what I'm talking about is literally, they'll sometimes use what's called a whisper feature. So when the manager talks or slacks or something, only the rep can hear it, but not the buyer. So that's like where they, literally it's like a ventriloquist with a dummy, like, say this. Okay, he said, say this,
Right,
it's like that kind of a thing.
This is a decent controversy, right? So Cassie, you and your org use it. Yep. Right? I'm going to go a big thumbs down. Everybody chat. Love it, hate it. Don't be a wussy and not vote or say sometimes. Steve, where are you? Love it, hate it.
Hate it. I'm with you. But again, I'm gonna say I see a lot of companies that do very, very well. And honestly, when I go in there, and I used to go on site before COVID, And when I would go on site and I saw them doing it and I watched it in real time on a big sales floor, 150, 200 people, I walked out of there going, you know what? There's nothing broken here. The people seem to like it, embrace it in this culture for some reason. Their numbers are phenomenally good. Who am I to judge, right? If that's working for them in their culture, I'm not going to try to convince them, scrap this and go to post-call recording review.
Yeah. Yeah. But for it to work, you've got to have a great coaching culture. That's why it's working at Outreach. Everybody's vulnerable. It's about the share. It's open. We all help each other. That's the culture. And that's why it works. Anywhere else, it's like, back up off me, man.
Yeah. And I think the other piece of it that's really important is it is, to your point, Steve, it's really use case dependent. And when it fails is when you have a world where managers are using it as like that big brother world. And when you have reps that it's used as a ramping tool, right? To help either reps that are struggling or reps that are ramping. If you're not exiting those reps off of that, there's a bigger problem.
That's a good point.
And so it's, is it the right org structure for it? And are you using it, back to Michelle's point, with the right intent of, hey, this isn't a long-term crutch. This is a ramping tool. This is somebody who's struggling tool. And are we coaching them off of it?
So you just gave me an insight I'm going to bring back to people, because everyone says they hear, don't work with C players, give up on them. Cassie, I love this. The final life raft is we're going to do it in real time. And if they can't do that, if they're not showing change and progress after that, then we're done. I like that. Sorry, Michelle, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, the one thing that I'm hearing consistently for anybody listening, popping in the chat, that is being said is that, yes, these tools work. Yes, we're a fan of different ways. There's always a way, right? Getting stuck on that it has to be specifically this is what I think kills the culture, kills the organization, is harmful to the sales reps instead of using it with the heart of adapting. Like Lauren mentioned, there's some organizations that would use a tool that somebody on this call might not agree with at all. But however, that organizations have built it, they're thriving, they're enjoying it. So I think it's, again, we go from the leaders down. If the leaders have the buy-in, if they are impassionate and enthusiastic about what they're doing, why they're doing it, and sell it to their people and utilize it in that manner, the sales will improve, period.
I want to underline,
it starts with that.
Yeah, listen, when we turned to Michelle with like, we came to you with drama, right? Like, good luck convincing us that live is good. But the reason that Michelle coaches live, I don't know if you guys pulled this out, is that she makes that experience so enjoyable for folks. They look forward to doing it. They look forward to the calling. They look forward to the coaching. You can't do that 2 weeks later with a recording. So that helps build the habit. But once again, it's got to be with your super high skilled coaches. We're going to talk about skills here in a second. And I'm going to tell you 9 out of 10 sales managers suck at coaching. That is a technical term. It's also a very, very proven scientific statistic, but it is a little bit scary. All right. The last word on systems. I just want to show y'all the number one mistake people make is buying the system first. Okay.
Ouch.
Process. Right here is how we coach. Set up your coaching processes and structure. Then teach people how to be good coaches. Then solve all their problems by giving them a system. Your adoption rates will go up like crazy. Steve, do you find that a lot of people have done this correctly, or do you find that they're trying to solve coaching with a system?
No, because everybody buys Gong because it's cool. And then I talk to them a year later and I go, what impact did it have on your business? And they said, nothing.
Yeah.
I go, sorry, I'm just going to be honest. That's the truth. And then I go, why? They're like, well, we didn't really get very good adoption, but that's our fault. It's not Gong's fault. And I go, okay, well, hold on a second. Why did you buy a tool for someone for a process they weren't even doing? So let me give you an example of what that would be like. Okay, so we've got a toaster oven where, you toast bagels and stuff like that. Well, why would we buy a toaster oven if we prior to this didn't try to toast our bagels on, I don't know, maybe like a skillet, like old people, old school people used to do, or over an open flame, or in other countries, or whatever they might do, or in the oven? Because that's how people typically will toast something. And then they realize that I need a toaster oven. I've never even toasted anything. And now you're telling me I want to get a toaster oven? It makes no sense. Six Sigma black belts, they say this, and it's so smart. They say, have the people do the process first and live the pain, then give them the tool. And then they don't just accept it. They love it. They embrace it. They'll never give it up.
Amen to that. The last
Yeah.
word on systems.
I mean, I agree with you, Steve. Systems are to make the process better, more adaptable, more adoptable, simplify them. But if you don't have a process in place, then what is the system solving for? Right. So it's that square peg round hole.
Yep, 100%. Chuck Shaver, a fool with the tool is still a fool. Loving that.
Cool,
All
cool.
right.
But Michelle, if you're gonna use your budget dollars to teach your managers how to coach or to give them the tool, teach them how to coach first. And I sell technology. I sell coaching technology. I'm telling you, teach them how to coach first.
Be clear, I sell coaching training.
There you go. Higher factor rate first, or Michelle or somebody.
Exactly. Teach your people how to coach. That we're ending with skills because it's so important. Okay. They're like, listen, Sales Executive Council did a study and they ranked sales managers' skills. Dead last, call coaching. I will tell you, I've been teaching call coaching for 20 years. It used to be a 2-hour class. It's now 16 hours in a 3-part series, and it's still hard to move the needle. I have a lot of fun with this. We call them coachastrophes. These are the 6 ways that managers F up call coaching. You may be looking at these and already recognizing yourself. Michelle, I'm coming to you first. What do you think are the biggest, like what's the biggest mistake that you
Well, I would say like you had Debbie Downer and Be Like Me. People tend to have a habit of looking for what went wrong, right? And not realizing that I always tell people wherever you start is almost where you end. Right. So if you, right, it's that sandwich. Let's talk about what went well. Let's talk about what excited you about that. Oh my God, that's absolutely amazing. Now you can segue into that challenge, that difficulty, that opportunity for improvement in a different manner, and it's received differently. And that person will more likely can think for themselves how to solve instead of you telling them how to solve, because they're already, you've expanded their mindset, right? Creativity happens when people are generally enthusiastic. It rarely happens when they're in a fear, doubt, overwhelmed situation.
Yes,
So,
that's why you're getting
I'm a big fan of start high, take a dip, go back high.
Right? It's the feedback sandwich.
Yeah.
I will tell you, Michelle, that we teach to overcorrect, right? It is the hardest skill to move. I can get them asking questions. I can get them leading with this. I can write with the positive, but there's still, the overall conversation is so negative still that we now teach 5 to 1. I want 5 atta-girls, atta-boys, atta-persons. I can change that entire term now. Atta-humans, there we go. And 1 thing to improve. And
it's a principle of positive intelligence, right? Is that you need a lot more positive energy to offset negative.
Yes.
A lot, like three times or more. So that 5 would definitely put you in that sphere. And that's what people think, that you can just go in and direct that energy and turn things around. It's literally, I like to tell people, we are our emotion is what makes decision. And if you want someone to make a better decision, you must lead them to a place where they believe they're capable of making a better decision first. And that requires positive energy.
Is that a real thing, this principle of positive intelligence? Is that what you called it?
Yes.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so actually, Michelle, I'll back you on this one, because like they've done studies on married couples that are happy and unhappy in their marriage, and there's that magic ratio, and I could swear it's even higher. I think it's even like 5 to 1, where when the ratio of positive to negative from one spouse to the other dips below this magic ratio, let's call it 3 to 1, then they end up usually splitting the sheets. So that's true. This is all very, very accurate behavioral.
Very, very accurate.
Yeah.
Like people always ask me why I smile and all this stuff. And like, I tell people, this is a lot of work all day long. However, my outcomes are absolutely incredible, right? My conversion rates are absolutely incredible. This is all intentional because it puts someone else in the mindset of belief. So as they're listening to me, talking to me, experiencing me, they're like already nodding immediately.
Watch people join Zoom.
That's necessary with your people.
Michelle,
right?
Watch people join Zoom and see how many people are smiling when they join Zoom. Not a whole, or Teams or whatever.
Oh no, or even have their camera on. Yeah, but most of the time they look like they don't want to be there.
Yeah, the number one thing, you join an online meeting, you smile, and you do this with your eyes. You know what I mean? You go big, and there's all sorts of behavioral research behind that.
So true. People don't think about that at all. Cassie, what do you want to say about skill? You said that this is where outreach needs the most, like, this is where you need the most help with your team.
Mhm.
How do you see that? What's worth training and improving and what's not?
Yeah, I love your little circle of the areas that are the boo-boos. I think the biggest one probably for us is we do a great job of promoting internally, right? Folks that have sold the product. And so the first thing a lot of sales managers do when they get stressed is they say, here's how I would do it. And we lose sight of the fact that, why one person wins is totally different than why someone else wins. And when I think about, when I first got to outreach, I had never been anywhere where there was CI. And I think one of the downsides of CI, and I've worked really hard with my team on this, is when you have a struggling rep, sometimes you'll say, go listen to calls. Like I was coaching a rep a couple weeks ago, and I was like, this doesn't even sound like you, and they had listened to so many calls of other folks that they were trying to mimic that. And so making sure that your reps don't lose their own voice in that process. So both the managers, the be like me, but also how do you leverage the technology to make sure that no one's going to do their best if they're just a robot version of somebody else.
Nice. Nice. By the way, in the spirit of vulnerability, I just realized this entire time as I've been typing in super awesome moments and what I've been learning, I've been sending it only to the 4 of us. So good use of the tool.
Oh, no.
Oh no.
Feeling great about myself. Everybody's got learning to do, even if you are as old as Steve Richard. Guys, I did a webinar just on those 6 boo-boos that is chock full of like the 12 biggest ahas that we teach in our 28-part coaching series. And you can get it free, factor8.com/coaching if you want another freebie resource. All right. I think that I'm going to leave this slide up because we're talking about anchoring call coaching culture. Blah, 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 blah. Anchoring meaning how do we keep it alive? And here are 10 ideas, right? If you're starting with a great big idea, how do you keep it here? How do you keep this coaching culture 10 years from now? But at the same time, I want to open it up to our panelists because we're coming down to our last 5 minutes. I'm going to give everybody one last word. It can be about keeping the coaching culture alive, or it can be about any of the 4 S's or anything else we've talked about in the last 45 minutes together. Your final word on coaching. I feel like Steve is the most ready here. He's looking eager, right? He's probably
because I'm smiling with my eyes. So
he's smiling with his eyes. You need to teach Ed how to do that, by the way.
The biggest thing is stop coaching by telling. I observe a lot of coaching sessions, and you know what it is? The manager talking for 90% of the time. And then later on, the reps are like, you're like, what'd you get out of that? Like, I don't know. I mean, they have no idea. Instead, flip the coaching paradigm on its head. It's something I learned from Mark Roberge at HubSpot, someone who's much smarter than me. He said coaching is a math problem. You got one manager, you got 10 direct reports. Even if you did an hour of call coaching per week, that's 10 hours a week. Can't do it. So instead, what do? Get the reps involved in their own development. And then when you meet with them, leverage a method that I learned called observe, describe, prescribe. Just observe what they did. Don't judge them. You're not Simon Cowell. This is not American Idol. Describe what they did. Explain to them. Here, okay, I just heard that call. You did this. Even better, have them describe. Hey, describe what happened here. Walk like point by point, and then finally prescribe, and preferably prescribe in the form of a question, because as we know, most people value more what they conclude for themselves and what they're told. So because people value more what they conclude for themselves and what they're told, you ask them, what would you like to have done differently? Now, sometimes they don't know because they're new, Cassie, and you have to tell them, and that's all well and good. But if you've told them multiple times, the training is done. At that point, they got to figure it out. They got to go back and look at their materials, and they got to come up with it themselves. And once they determine to change something themselves, the probability that it sticks is way higher. So I think what we realize is as coaches, we work too hard and don't get enough impact out of the coaching we deliver. That's on us. We've never been taught this stuff.
If the rep gives, it lives. If you decide, watch it die. The rhyming is a little off. Michelle, you're next.
So piggyback on what he says, I'm a believer in being a curious observer. versus a critical judger is what I call it. So I think about the questions. As a curious observer, I'm observing you, I'm feeding back questions to you, because the goal is that you think of your result, because you'll take ownership and accountability for what you think of and what you create versus what I tell you, right? And then champion and cheerlead. So whatever they decide, help them to manage that and make that where their success from, because then that's how people become better creative and critical thinkers for themselves. And what they find is they begin to outperform because they are less likely to need you to tell them what to do. They will start to trust themselves. And that's what a top performer in sales does. They trust themselves. They have no doubt that they will succeed. They have no doubt that they're going to close, that they're going to get sales. And that's what most people are incapable of coaching and teaching people how to do, so that you can thrive.
I love it. It's so good. It takes longer at the beginning.
It takes a lot longer at the beginning. It's like you're raising someone, seriously.
It is not dissimilar to parenting. No, Cassie.
Wow, that was awesome. I think for me, it's that, and then it's two other things. And I think, Michelle, you talked about this a lot today, but what is the intent? So getting to a place where the reps, whoever you're giving the feedback to, knows your intent so that they can consume it in a positive way. That the marriage example is all too real. And then the second piece is, I think as leaders, and or if you want to maintain this long term all the way to the top, you have to have a culture of vulnerability. And so showing your reps that it is celebrated to get better, it is celebrated to learn, and no one is ever stopping that process. And so I think if all the way to the top you show vulnerability, you build a long-term culture around it.
That's fantastic. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Our sponsors make this kind of thing possible, and these sponsors make Girls Club possible. If you don't know about Girls Club, learn about us. We are girlsclub.com. Outreach, take a look at their product. By the way, also hiring. So click some of these links in chat. Sendoso and Docebo, thank you for making all of this possible. We really, really love and appreciate you. Finally, make sure you find each of us on LinkedIn. Feel free to share additional questions and comments. Steve Richard does a tip of the day, which is phenomenal, and he will wear his headband. Michelle Baker can come in and coach your reps and have your managers watch her doing that coaching. It's amazing. And the number one thing I can say about outreach is just try to go work for Cassie and get in that organization. You are hiring, correct?
We are hiring in all roles all around the country. Please apply.
Yeah, it's such an amazing organization. We love that. And led by a female CRO, the great Anna Baird. Really, really uncommon. We love celebrating that at Girls Club. Thank you for being with us, everybody. You have 2 minutes to pee before your next meeting. Panel, you were amazing. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.